Okay, I know it's been a while, but you know you can always count on my unhinged need to buy books when I'm going through it. Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. I am so happy to be back to filming again. This over a month long break was honestly completely unintentional. I just started one week being like, I can't do this for a week, and then it just turned into 2, and then it turned into like 4, and then here we are. But I am so glad to be back and just chatting about books with you guys, and it's something that really just helps me stay sane. And although I'm still kind of going through it, I appreciate the space that I have with you guys. So yeah, I'll talk about this more maybe in another video, maybe in a Q&A at some point. Feel free to leave me a question down below if you'd like. But today's video is a pure and simple book haul because, you know, the one thing you can count on when I'm going through it is buying more books, because even if I'm not reading for like 2 months, which I haven't, I've read like 1 book in the past 2 months. Even if I'm not reading, I think the one thing that I love doing when I'm not feeling great is buying books because they just make me happy. I love adding them to my collection. I love the idea of potentially reading them at some point. And honestly, there's just so many wonderful stories out there that I'm just waiting to experience. Now, since even depressed girls need to make bank and pay their bills, today's video is being sponsored by Book of the Month, which you guys know very well. I've talked about them so many times before because I genuinely love their service, and they are also now available in both US and Canada. So Book of the Month is a super popular online book service for readers, and they're actually on their 100th month, which is super awesome. And basically the way it works is that you get to pay a really nice low fee for new release hardcover books, and you get them in these wonderful little blue Book of the Month boxes, and they're delivered straight to your door. And it's a subscription, so you get one every month, and you get to choose from a curated selection of books that the Book of the Month team has vetted from new releases and upcoming releases. Now this month, Book of the Month has something new up their sleeve, which is audiobooks. So every month you can actually choose between getting a hardcover or an audiobook for your subscription that month. It's all the same subscription, you just get to choose, and you get to choose between the selections that are available. And for the audiobooks, you just have to download the Book of the Month app, and then you can listen to your audiobooks there. I absolutely love that Book of the Month is incorporating audiobooks now, just because I personally listen to audiobooks so much, and they're primarily how I get most of my reading done. But whatever type of reader you are, you can grab whatever works for you, whether it's hardcover or audiobook. And you can also grab your first box or audiobook for only $5 this month with the code FLOWERS. Now, Book of the Month was kind enough to send me a couple of their selections for this month. So the first one that I picked is Paper Names by Susie Lowe. This one is a literary fiction. It seems it's set over 3 decades and follows 3 different perspectives, and it's set between New York and China. And it talks about just being American in this age. All right, and then the second book that I picked from the Book of the Month selections is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul. This is one that I'm really excited for because it's set in old Hollywood, and the premise is basically that this white icon named Kitty Carr dies suddenly, and she bequeaths her multi-million-dollar estate to the St. John sisters, and these sisters happen to be these like young, wealthy Black women. And this of course raises a lot of questions in the time period that this is set in, and honestly I'm excited to see how this one goes. And with that, I'm super excited for the Book of the Month selections and for you guys to go check them out. Use the code FLOWERS to get your first Book of the Month box or audiobook for $5, and use the link down below. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into all the books that I bought on an unhinged spree. All right, first up we have a memoir that I've actually already read, and that is What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. You guys know that I read this for a video in January where I read Cindy with Cindy's favorite books of like 2022, and I absolutely fell in love with this book. It is such a complex and just beautifully told memoir, and one that talks a lot about trauma and healing, and something that I honestly really needed at the time. But I actually read this one through the audiobook entirely, which I highly recommend if you are gonna pick this one up, because the author incorporates some snippets of actual recordings in parts of the book. But overall, it was just such a fantastic memoir that really hit me hard in so many ways, and which I related to in a lot of ways as well. So I knew I had to pick up a physical copy and just have it for my collection. If you are planning to pick this one up, I would just recommend looking up the content warnings, because the author does go through some really traumatic and troubling things throughout her past and with her mental health, so just be aware of that going into it. On a similar note, the next book is actually a memoir, which I didn't know. I thought it was a fiction book, but regardless, super excited to read it. And that is I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek Si-hee. This is actually so relatable to me because like the depression, but also like tteokbokki is one of my favorite Korean dishes. It's rice cakes and I absolutely love them. Every time I go out for Korean food, that's what I order. And this book is basically a memoir. The author was a social media director at a publishing house, and she starts seeing a psychologist about her depression, or what seems like depression. And from what I can tell, the book records her sessions with her psychiatrist over a 12-week period, and it's just going through all the things that she's feeling. I'm really intrigued by this one because like the description talks about how she was just so adept at like masking her depression. So I just want to like see how this one goes and like see what else there is to sort of discover with this book. I just feel like I am really enjoying memoirs these days, and ones that especially dive into like mental health and mental illness because #relatable. But another thing that I know about this one, which is why it's so popular, is that RM from BTS like recommended this one and like really loves it, and that's why it's like super popular, and it's like even on the cover of this book. So, and it's also been marketed as like the therapy memoir of this generation, which I find really interesting. So overall, excited to pick this one up, and it's definitely high on my list to pick up next because I'm just feeling in the mood for it. If you have read I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki, let me know in the comments down below, especially if you struggle with your mental health or you have a mental illness of some kind. If you found it comforting, I would love to hear. Speaking of mental disorders, the next book is another memoir by someone I absolutely adore, who I recently learned also has ADHD like me, and that book is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. So this is Trevor Noah's memoir that came out quite a few years ago. It's also subtitled Stories from a South African Childhood. I honestly love Trevor Noah, but didn't really know much of his history, and my sister had read this memoir, really loved it, had recommended it to me multiple times. I just never got around to reading it, but I picked it up like a few weeks ago on audiobook because Trevor Noah reads it himself, so you need to listen to the audiobook because he just delivers all the jokes really well. But this was just so fantastic. It's just so interesting to like hear the stories from his childhood and like the hardships that he went through, but also like the very humorous and slightly dark humorous way that he presents those stories in this memoir. And honestly, I just loved it so much. And I really love like the credit that he gives to his mother for making him who he is. Again, this one has multiple triggers, so I would just be aware of that going into it, look up some content warnings. And I love the way that he talks about like privilege and just sort of the Western mentality versus like, you know, the rest of the world, and how we think that we're like the center of the universe. And you know, he was in South Africa growing up, and so his worldview is slightly different as well. Overall, it was just like a fantastic memoir, really well-rounded with both really funny parts but also really sad parts, and just like overall a really nice experience to read about. All right, on a completely different note, the next book is a middle grade graphic novel by an author that I really love, and that is Shakti by S.J. Sindhu. This is actually an ARC copy that was sent to me, but the actual book I think comes out this month in May, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for it. I'm really excited to pick this one up. It basically follows this 12-year-old Indian American girl. She's got two moms, and she's like discovering this like ancestral magic that she has, and she's trying to like fight off this curse on the town, and it just seems like it's gonna be so freaking cute, and definitely something I wish I had when I was that age. So really excited to just read it and like be happy and just fall in love with the story. I also just really love S.J. Sindhu as an author. She's written a couple books that I absolutely adore. One is Marriage of a Thousand Lies, and the other one is Blue Skin Gods. Both amazing. You should definitely go check them out. But this is her first ever middle grade graphic novel. All right, the next book is one that I'm so freaking excited for because it's just that like premise that I never knew I needed in a book until I saw it on the back of this one. So that book is The Bandit Queens by Parini Shrove. I feel like this is like a cross between a thriller and a literary fiction and sort of a comedy. It's like a clever comedic thriller, I would say. It basically follows our main character Geeta, who lives in this like remote village in India, and one day she just lost her husband. Like one day she woke up and he just wasn't around, and people think that she somehow got rid of him and like killed him, did something, whatever it is. And so now she has this like reputation for being this like self-made widow, and it kind of has its perks. You know, people don't mess with her. They always, you know, give her business, and like she is just living a good life. But the reputation comes with some caveats, and so now she's getting like these women who want her to help them become self-made widows, and some of them are not really asking very nicely. And of course, this is going to set off a chain of events, which I'm just so excited to see unfold in this book. I would love to hear from any of you, if you've read this book, what you thought of it, because I just think it's going to be so much fun and definitely like the pick-me-up that I need. I just love that it's taking like a character like Geeta, who wouldn't be your typical main character, and making her the main character. I think it's just so fun. So cannot wait to see how this one goes. Alrighty, the next book that I have is A History of Burning by Janika Oza. You guys might recognize this one. I recently posted about it on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go check it out at thisstoryaintover. But this was sent to me by the publisher for a sponsored reel, and honestly, I'm just really excited for this book regardless. I've started reading it and the prose is just beautiful, but this book is very, very similar to Pachinko by Min-jin Lee in terms of like the premise and the concept. It also follows multiple generations of a family over the course of 100 years. And this particular family, it starts off with like one young character who makes this decision that leads him from India to Uganda and building the East African Railway. And from there, the later generations of his family are forced to leave Uganda by Idi Amin's administration in Uganda, and they are forced to flee to Toronto. I find him really loving historical and literary fictions like this that like take generations of a family and talk about, you know, how history has affected them and brought them to this point. I think it's such an interesting way to look at a story and how the stories of people are just so interconnected, and I love it so much. Pachinko is one of my favorite books ever, and I'm hoping that this one will be equally as much of a favorite for me. Alright, the next book is one that I kind of bought on a whim because I don't actually know too much about it, but I'm intrigued. We'll see if I keep this. So that book is Victory City by Salman Rushdie. I know a lot of people don't like Salman Rushdie, but I know a lot of people do love him. I honestly am kind of indifferent about him, but I read one of his books for a class in university, a South Asian lit class, and that one was Midnight's Children, which, although it is very dense and very hard to get through, personally in my opinion, I found so much value in the book. I think there was a lot to unpack in it. Obviously there's some problematic things in it too, but I think there's a lot to just examine and go over in that book, and it was especially fun to do that in a English class. So I'm curious about this new book. The one thing I do know about this book is that it's set over like 250 years. It starts in the 14th century southern India, and it's sort of narrated in this ancient epic style, which I find very intriguing. So if you've read Victory City, I would love to hear what you thought of it, but I'm intrigued and I want to see if I will enjoy it more than Midnight's Children, which I didn't really enjoy that much, but like I just found it fascinating to read, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that this will be a similar, if not better, experience. All right, the next book that I picked up is one that I'm quite excited for. I don't know too much about it, but this author is amazing. She's a beloved Canadian author, and that is Venko by Sherry Dimeline. Sherry Dimeline is the author of The Marrow Thieves, which is actually a book that I've read before. Really loved it. It's a YA sort of dystopian book. I personally thought it was a really valuable read, but I did want more like of an adult book from this author, and so I saw this one on one of the tables at Chapters Indigo the other day, and I was like, yes, give it to me, because this one has witches in it. And what I found even more interesting about this one is that it's about like contemporary witches, like in our regular day and age. And what I also found fun was that it's like set in Canada, like in Toronto. The main character, who is orphaned daughter of a badass Métis good times girl, that's what the description says. She is finding out that her grandmother and her are about to be evicted from their apartment, and this is where she sort of stumbles upon the witches and that whole situation going on. So I'm really intrigued by this one. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And I think what's also really exciting about this one is that I've been looking for more books by Indigenous authors that are more on the like lighthearted, or just more on the side of like showing their joy as well, because I think there's this tendency when it comes to BIPOC authors, especially from like the white gaze, to expect them to like perform their trauma for us and show us all the things that they've gone through, and that's the only type of story that they're allowed to tell because it's the important one. But I think the joyful, ridiculous, fantastical stories by BIPOC authors are also really important. So that's why I'm really excited for this one. And I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Obviously, it's going to be informed by all of the like experiences, lived experiences of an Indigenous person, but I think it's also really cool to just see it in like a contemporary sense as well. All right, and then the next book is also one that I grabbed from that same table that I was browsing at Chapters Indigo, and that is Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. This one is also set in Canada, which is exciting. And basically, from what I can tell, it's a bit of a contemporary, but also a bit of a thriller, it seems. And the main character is Mackenzie. She's a Cree millennial, and she's having this weird situation where she is like bringing back things from her dreams, and it's starting to cause some problems. And she's starting to receive these texts from someone who's claiming to be her dead sister. And so the main character ends up going from her home in Vancouver to her childhood home in Alberta, and is discovering things along the way. And honestly, it seems like it's going to be a pretty interesting read. I'm curious by all of like the spooky things going on as well. I can't really tell what genre this is, but I'm intrigued nonetheless. One thing that really caught my eye about this one was something that was said in one of the blurbs on the back of the book, and it says that the book is full of auntie power, which I love. If you guys have watched my video where I tier rank my favorite like book tropes and stuff, aunties in books is like my favorite thing, especially BIPOC aunties, and they're just so cool. I love them. So I'm really excited for this book in general. Alrighty, the second last book I have for this video is one that I have been anticipating for so long, since it was announced, since I got the last book from this author, because honestly, love her books. They're just such a great time. I'm always deeply satisfied by them. So really excited for this new one by her, which is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I love how vibrant and in your face this cover is. Like, I just love this like magenta color, pink or whatever it is. I also found it interesting that this book, unlike her previous books, which were always released in paperback in Canada, this one was released in hardcover, so we know she's reached like a different level, but I'm totally fine with it. I really love her books, and they're always such a great time. For those of you who don't know, Emily Henry is a romance author. She's written Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation, Book Lovers, all great, fantastic romances. Everyone has their own preference. I personally really enjoy them, but some people don't, which is totally fine. This is her newest book that just came out, and really excited for it. From what I remember, it follows a couple who like got together in college, were really good together, everyone loved them. They were part of like a bigger friend group, and 5 months ago they broke up, but they haven't told any of their friends. And you know, they don't want to ruin the dynamic, and also because the friend group has like this cottage trip coming up in Maine, and so they decide that they're just going to like act like they're still together for this trip and then tell everyone afterwards that they've broken up. But of course, will they be able to keep the feelings at bay, not get back together in some way? Like, this is like reverse fake dating, and I love it so much. I do love just the overall angst that this situation is going to introduce, because, you know, they have to like act like they're still together, and it's honestly just gonna be so great. I'm so excited for it. I cannot wait to see how it goes. I feel like I've been saving this for like just a day when I know I don't have anything to do and I can just like binge read this and fall in love, because that's literally what I've done for her previous books. Like, I just binge read them in like a day or two, and they're fantastic, and I feel so great afterwards. If you're one of the cool people who have already read this since like the week it's come out when I'm filming this, let me know what you thought of it, because I'm really intrigued. I would love to hear how you would rank this book in terms of her other books as well, because I honestly really love the other ones. I can't decide which one's my favorite. I think it's probably Beach Read, because that was like the first one that I read of hers and like it hit me. But I mean, I love the other two almost just as much. Alrighty, the final book on this book haul is one that I kind of bought on a whim because I was listening to the audiobook, really enjoying it, and I was like, you know what? Probably gonna end up loving this book, so let me just grab the physical copy anyways. And that book is Finding Me by Viola Davis. I'm still listening to the audiobook right now, but this is Viola Davis's memoir. She is an actress. You may have seen her in How to Get Away with Murder. I've actually only watched a couple seasons of that show. I haven't finished it, but like I really loved her and her acting in that show, and I've seen her in so many other things, and she's just such a fantastic actress and like woman and person overall. And you can tell she's like been through lots of hard experiences, and this is her story. And I'm still pretty early in the audiobook for this, but it's already so amazing, and I think she has so much wisdom to impart on the world, I think. And just the visceral way that she narrates the audiobook is just so amazing. Like, you're in the moment with her. This is definitely not a memoir for the faint of heart. She's gone through some difficult things in her life, so I would just be aware of that going into it. But really fantastic so far, and I'm excited to see what I think of it by the end. But I have no doubt that it's gonna be like probably a 5 out of 5 stars. If you have read Viola Davis's memoir, definitely let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you have any other memoir recommendations, also leave them down below, because as you can tell, I'm on a memoir binge right now and I'm just really enjoying them. With that said, those are all the books on this book haul. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you're glad to see me back. Again, I apologize for being away for so long. Not completely intentional, but it was much needed, and I'm excited to just get back to the regular groove of making videos. And I know, like, I drop a lot of dark, humorous jokes about my mental health and like how I'm doing, and like I do want to reiterate that, like, although I seem like happy and like excitable in these videos, I don't want you to think that that's fake or that I'm putting on a show for you. I think for me, being able to do these videos and being able to talk to you guys about books and getting to be excited about books is something that I love doing, and so it just naturally comes out in these videos, even though I can't muster that in other situations in my life. So I just want you to know how grateful I am to have you guys and to have this space. All of this is really genuine. Like, I really do appreciate you guys, and I'm honestly super excited for these books. And through everything in my life, like books and stories and all of this has been the saving grace. So with that cheesy note, I would love to hear from all of you if you are planning to read any of these books, if you are hoping to pick them up sometime soon, if you've read any of them and what you thought of them, and definitely leave me your memoir book recs down below, or any other book recs that you have based off of what I've been grabbing recently. And if you have any books that, you know, have characters with mental illnesses or disorders, or, you know, talk about that kind of stuff, leave them down below. I'm looking for more of those. And as always, love and appreciate you all. I hope you are all doing okay, that you are making it through, and I want you to know that, like, no matter what you're feeling, this too shall pass, and that there's someone out there who loves and cares about you and wants you to be here. As always, if you want to get more regular updates on what I'm reading and what I'm up to, definitely go check out my Instagram down below at thisstoryaintover, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!